Hi, everyone. I'm Deborah Martin, and I want to welcome you back to the Invisible Matters podcast, where we are all reminded that everyone has strengths and all of us have needs. And sometimes our needs are not easily apparent by the human eye. And so sometimes we want to just step back a little bit and not judge people and think maybe something else is going on with that person that we just aren't aware of. And the best way that you can support us is to follow and subscribe. All right, so today I have I think, a very interesting topic about invisible matters. It's about millennials and mental health. Millennials are people who were born between 1981 and 1996. And so I have observed, and I think most people are becoming aware, that people in that age group tend to really take care of themselves a lot more than previous generations. And so I know I personally am very thankful for that. And so I have two guests here today who we're just going to have a conversation, and I want to learn more about really what makes you all tick, and to help other people just learn more about your generation and where, some of the challenges are, but as well as some of the things that you enjoy about being in your generation. And so my first guest is Miss Samira Howard.
Hi.
Hi, Samira.
Hey,
Welcome.
thank you.
And also Miss Tristan Malone Thomas.
Hello.
Hi, Tristan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well today. Your
Good.
smiles are beautiful, and I
Thank
know
you.
this is going to be a great chat. I want you all first just to tell me about yourselves, because you are two really, I think, amazing young women who are doing great things.
Thanks. Thank
So
you.
we'll start with Tristan.
All right. Well, my name is Tristan Malone Thomas, as Miss Deborah mentioned. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor and also a supervisor to licensed professional graduate counselors as well. Currently, I practice therapy with families, children, adults, teens as well. If you do know the show Fatal Attraction, I was on that as well as one of the therapists talking about one of the cases actually in Maryland. Also, I've done panels for Trinity Washington University, which is where I graduated from and received my master's. And I also do a lot of community-based work as well. Even outside of doing therapy, I love to be involved, volunteer, and just spend quality time with getting to know others.
Wonderful. Samira.
Hey everybody, my name is Samira Howard. I have my bachelor's in kinesiology, which is exercise science. I always have to explain what that is because people never really know. I graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park, and then I went on to get my degree, my master's in health administration. I am truly just a fitness and health enthusiast all the way around. And as you might know, sometimes people forget that part of health is mental health. I'm always honored that people want to talk to me about mental health because, I think that we don't always have it together, but I do think that being in my 30s, I've lived a while and I've gained some insight on ways to maintain my personal mental health. I volunteer with a program called Girls on the Run, and I love Girls on the Run so much. Been volunteering with them now for 8 years, and part of mentorship for me is making sure that the girls are okay, by speaking to them and just having deep conversations. And you are right that millennials, we do pay attention to this. So I'm excited to have a conversation with you and Tristan today.
And so, Tristan, can you just kind of get us started with what is mental health?
Yes, so mental health is pretty much the capability that an individual has to learn, develop skills and strategies to help them navigate and manage life transitions, hardships, pretty much a lot of the things that most people deal with in life. And mental health, just as well as physical health, as Samira was just talking about, again, it's very important. And again, it's very important to acknowledge that it does exist, which is something that I've seen over time, a lot of people don't necessarily believe that mental health is a real thing. So that is pretty much kind of a synopsis of what it looks like. However, mental health is very individual for each person and how it looks, or even how they perceive mental health to be for them.
I know my generation, therapy, counseling, you didn't hear those words very often at all. And I think, honestly, I think a lot of people have a negative thought when they hear mental health. They hear the word mental. But now it seems like everybody has a therapist. And it doesn't have to be, a major life altering thing. You can go for a short while, you can go as long as you want.
Yeah.
Samira, so the wellness part.
Right.
Tell us about that, because they really do go hand in hand, and I know that your generation really, again, know that that's important also.
Definitely. And, before I jump into all the positives about my generation, like, of course, boomers, you guys faced your own set of problems that I think really took away from the time that you guys were able to, or would have been able to spend on your mental health, right? Like, you guys really laid the foundation for us, right? Like, boomers are known for going to work, sticking with a job, no matter the circumstances, right? And especially Black boomers, you guys didn't really have the wiggle room. Like, you knew that you were starting something for us. And I just wanted to say that before we jump into all the things that millennials are doing, because that's what y'all have done as a sacrifice for us. So I just want to say thank you to you and my parents, who are also boomers, and all the boomers that I do know. But for me specifically, because fitness is such a huge part of my life, like, if anybody follows me on Instagram or TikTok, I post a lot of like fitness videos. But if you follow me on my stories, I talk a lot about how fitness has really helped me maintain, a good level of mental health. I know when I go to the gym and I get a great workout in, I feel so much better when I leave. Like, my sisters and I call it like feeling wiggly when you're not having the best day. But whenever I go and I get a workout in, those happiness hormones, they release. And then you feel like, okay, like, it's not as bad as I think it is today. And it really does help keep your nervous system regulated. You really just focus on your body, and you find this sort of homeostasis when you maintain an active like lifestyle. So yes, I do think that mental health and fitness go hand in hand. Also, our nutrition.
Yes.
What we eat has a lot to do with the way that we're able to properly manage our health, and the supplements that we take too, right? So it really all kind of just works together to help us live a more healthy lifestyle overall.
Speaking of taking care of ourselves, I've realized that it seems like skincare, that business is just booming. It seems like everybody, that's famous has their own line out. And, when I thought about it, I said, that's taking care of yourself.
Yes.
All of that wasn't happening back in my day. You washed your face with soap and water and kept it moving.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was, important, because I noticed, that women really, really are taking better care of themselves inside and outward. So how about any specific challenges that you all feel that Black women who are, in their 30s encounter in terms of just having conversations, about life and emotions? Do you feel comfortable? Are there enough settings where you can feel free to explore all of that?
So for me, and again, I know I can't speak for every Black millennial woman, but friendships are definitely a very important safe space for me. I mean, I definitely have connections that have lasted years of time. And, when I think about other safe spaces, such as maybe even a therapeutic space, sometimes that can be a little scary for people. And again, when you're coming in, you're introducing yourself to somebody who you don't know, you've never met. And again, there are benefits to that. However, with friendships, people that you've known for forever, you've had these experiences with them, they've lived a lot of life with you.
Right.
So it's a lot easier, I feel like, to connect, to talk, just feel comfortable, and to also just be yourself, which is super important. So I would say friendships, and then the therapeutic spaces I was just mentioning is definitely a great space to be able to have a non-biased third party to your life. I always say, being a clinician, it's difficult because people already, the stigma that exists there makes it hard for them to want to come in. But also the therapeutic alliance that the clinician has with the client or patient, that is what keeps people coming.
Right.
That is what builds the bond, builds the rapport, and allows them to feel comfortable and safe enough to talk about those personal experiences or different past traumas that they're trying to actually work through or heal from.
Right.
And I always say with therapy, every person is not, the perfect match. Sometimes you have to shop around. Don't just go one time and say, oh, no, that's not for me. Maybe, try somebody else. It's okay.
Yes.
I always say that therapy, when you're finding the right therapist, is kind of like dating. Like there has to be a vibe there. So it definitely took me a second to find my therapist, but when I found her, it was kind of just like, I like you. But also, you're challenging me, and I think that that's not just what we look for in any of our relationships, but that's a great quality to find in a therapist, somebody that challenges you, but makes you feel seen.
Right.
So, and educates you.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. So both of you all are very busy ladies. How do you balance your mental health needs and supporting, yourself there with all, career pressures, family, all of the other responsibilities? How do you balance?
For me specifically, and it took me a little bit of living to really understand what works best with my mental health flow, right? I over the years have had to learn, and people don't realize this about me, but people think I'm extroverted. I'm actually very introverted, and I think what I've learned to understand about myself and my mental health is that I have to reset by myself. Some people are able to reset and recharge around people, but that's not me. As much as I would love to be super extroverted all the time, I know that I'm like, I can get drained. I can feel drained, and so I'll say, okay, and I'll just disappear for a second. My friends know this about me. So you really have to kind of just get to know yourself and what works for you over time. Another thing that I'm learning, and this could just be because we're in our 30s, girl, but my mental health suffers if I don't sleep enough. Like, sleep is the key. And I'm learning this the hard way so many times. Where you're not resting at night, you're not giving yourself a chance to recover. And so sleep for me, for sure. And then I think the third thing, of course, like I was saying, is fitness. Like if your body feels sluggish, if you haven't been putting in the time just to condition your heart, you're going to start to feel, like I was saying earlier, a little wiggly. So those are my three things. And my therapist and God. I'd be up a creek mentally if I didn't have the base of my faith. But then I think it's also interesting, I think, because as Black people, so much of who we are as a community is solidified in our faith, but I also feel like our faith has held us back a little in the mental health conversation. And
How so?
Yeah, for what I'm noticing, or what I notice about a lot of boomers, and I want to say some Gen X too, because they're right after boomers, is that they'll say, well, just pray about it. And I'm like, I have, auntie, but I think God has created mental health professionals to help us get through things. The scripture is great and it keeps us lifted, but God placed her in her career because he knew that it was her calling. And so we have to trust our mental health professionals to help us. So, yeah.
Great. How do you balance things?
So the first thing that I always remind myself is that I will never have a 100% 50-50 balance. That is something that I try to be very realistic with, because a lot of times people like to say, "Oh, you need to have a perfect balance. You need to have a balance
Thank
between
you for saying that.
life
Ooh,
and work,"
you
and it's
just helped
hard.
me.
Not realistic.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
not
I
realistic.
never thought about that. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be 50-50
No.
or 25-25-25.
Exactly. It's and I try to tell people that all the time, and I think it takes the pressure off,
Yeah.
because we feel like it has to be equal, and it's just it's not. It's
Mm-hmm.
never will be. But you know, I definitely rely on my faith. Just as Samir was saying, I rely on my faith a lot. Very active in my faith as well, even in my church, and that is healing for me. I also definitely like to work out. I like to be, even if it's just like different physical types of activity, even if
Right.
it's not like kind of pointed exercise,
Right.
you know, just kind of getting out,
Right.
going to a park, going to even an amusement park, walking around, like things like that are good. They're healing,
Right.
you know, they're fun for me to do. And then hanging out with my family and friends. Like, love my family,
Yeah.
love my friends. They are amazing people, and they literally give me life.
Right.
Like, even when I'm frustrated or just down about something, I can always go to them. Like, I feel super confident about that, and I know that they'll always be there.
So let's delve into perceptions of Black women, just in terms of strength. What are you supposed to be? What is reality in that area? Tell me your thoughts.
Since the beginnings of this country, when we were brought here, of course forcibly, not by choice, Black women have been at the bottom of the totem pole of society. I don't think anybody can argue against that fact. Bodily autonomy actually is something that's very new for Black women. And a lot of scientists are finding out now that trauma genetically expresses itself, right? And so your mother and her mother, my sisters and I, like all of us here, we are really battling through the mental health challenges that our ancestors, especially our black women, never had an opportunity to battle through because they were literally just trying to survive. And so Black women have been burdened with being silent about all the things that we go through mentally. And I'm sure that history books don't touch on so many of the things that we have been through mentally because our stories weren't told, which is why I love that you have this podcast now. And I do think that it's my responsibility as a millennial, as a Black millennial woman, to change the narrative around how we are perceived. Like, it's beautiful to be strong, but I am very soft, very delicate. I require that you handle me gently. And I just hate that we're always perceived as strong, always perceived as, oh, well, you have to be delightful, especially in the workplace, right? It's like,
All the time.
some days I don't feel, some days I just want to be quiet. Some days I don't want to interact with you guys. And
But so tell me more about that. You said you feel like you have to be delightful.
yes, so we know that there are stereotypes about Black women, right? There is the angry Black woman, right? And then there's also the Black woman who just appeases to everyone in a space at any given time. And real life doesn't work like that. Like, we're humans, right? Some days we're exhausted. Some days we don't feel like chatting with everybody. Some days I've heard Black women say, I just want to sit in my cubicle and do my work. But we're expected to be either chipper, or if we're not chipper, well, she doesn't want to be a part of this, and she doesn't seem kind, or it's like, do we do that to other women?
No, I totally agree. I literally second everything that Samira said. I feel like you have to kind of be under the radar to a degree. You know, it's very hard to navigate that balance and still try to, again, maintaining, your overall wellness. It's very hard. And workspaces can be one of, I feel like, the most toxic and stressful spaces.
Stressful.
Very hard. And you're there, honestly, more than you're even with, your own family.
I say that all the time.
You know?
Yeah.
You're with your colleagues so much. And the microaggressions, like, it's like this is crazy. In 2024, these are the type of microaggressions we're still experiencing. And it's just a little crazy to me. And, you know, a lot of times if you do say something, you know, in a sort of stern way, it's, oh, you're being mean. Am I being mean, or am I speaking up for myself?
Absolutely. So we cannot end this podcast without talking about dating and relationships. I know y'all got a lot to say about that.
Yes.
So again, just for, you know, your generation, and not just as Black women, but for all people, you know, in your age range, you know, I mean, social media and dating apps,
all the other podcasts,
podcasts.
Exactly.
Tell me about relationships and dating.
You want me
She
to
got so
you know, it's crazy because I think that I'm at a point where I'm really moving in such a space of optimism. I remember being at church one time. I can't recall if it was for a Bible study, but my pastor asked all the women, he said, who believes that God has created somebody for them? And of course, me, I'm like, I do. I believe God has somebody for me. But I was shocked at the amount of women who did not raise their hand, and it really shook me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is where we are. And it's a little crazy right now. It's a little crazy, but I do think that there's somebody out there for me. There's a lot of conversation going around about high value men and high value women and the things to do, things not to do. And I don't think there are any rules. What I try to do for my mental health when I'm dating is I'm genuine. And I feel like if I'm genuine with someone and there's no reciprocity there, it's not my person. We know the numbers, especially for Black women when it comes to dating. And so I'm also trying to be a little more open-minded when it comes to dating. And I try to talk to men who are kind to me, who obviously they're in touch with themselves emotionally, they're emotionally aware and intelligent. Men who have good relationships with their siblings, their parents. And you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be trying. And that's something that I think that I look for specifically.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely have heard similar sentiments in relation to the dating pool and kind of what that looks like right now. You know, and I always try to stay positive.
Right.
I try to stay positive
What else can
for
you
everybody,
do?
you know, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And again, you're dealing with other humans.
Right.
So, you know, there's so many complexities that come with that.
Right.
So, you know, trying to find the one, essentially, it's hard. It's really hard. But I think one thing that you pointed out, Samira, that I hold very dear to me as well is authenticity.
Right.
Like being yourself and being able to be yourself with who you feel like is your person. If you can't be yourself, that's
Don't
gonna
waste my time.
exactly. It's that is not gonna be good.
Let me see who you are.
Exactly.
Let's get the show on the road.
Absolutely.
It may or may not be, you know, the best fit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know that, you know, I have 2 daughters, and, you know, been there and done that.
Right.
And, you know, I know it's very different, you know, now. So what would you all tell the younger Tristan, the younger Samira, in terms of taking care of your mental health?
It's so funny because I just did a beauty pageant, and one of the things I did was write a letter to myself, to my younger self. And it made me very emotional because I literally envisioned like looking at her, right? And I could see what she was stressed about, and I knew like how her heart was racing in so many situations and all the things that were sort of placed on her, especially as I'm also the oldest daughter in my family. So I think one thing I would tell her is to just relax. I really don't think that anything in your life that belongs to you, that God has ordained for you, will miss you. Also, it's okay that you're so empathetic. I used to think that was a weakness. And I've certainly been in situations where I do feel like it's been taken advantage of. But I don't think that it's a weakness. I think that it's a superpower in this world where we've lost so much empathy. I would tell her to just continue to be herself and to show up for people who might feel marginalized, to continue showing up for herself and to love yourself no matter what, celebrate yourself, all those things, and to continue putting your mental health first. So.
And Samira mentioned beauty pageants.
Yes.
You were the first runner-up in 2018
yes.
for Miss
DC USA. Yeah.
USA. Yes.
Right.
And you all see why.
Thank you.
Sure. Tristan, how about that little young Tristan?
She was.
What would you tell her?
She was a rambunctious one. She loves people, and she still does to this day, given her career field. But no, I would tell her, is you are not going to be the perfect person. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to find out new things about yourself that you maybe didn't know or that other people knew about you at the beginning of life, or even the expectations that people may have had at you at the beginning of life. But you will be okay. You will be fine. You will find your path. You will find your people. You will find your way, and everything will be fine.
Wonderful, wonderful. Both of you all are really great role models. And again, this podcast is all about the things that people just simply don't know about and consider. And I think you all hit on some really important, facts today that people, they just don't, it doesn't register for them that this is what is going on, with my 35-year-old, son or daughter. This is why they're doing this way, So I want to thank you all for being here today, and I want to thank our viewers. I hope that you were able to learn something that you didn't know, that you will kind of think about, because remember, the more you learn about other people, it will add value to your own life, and you will grow as a person. So if you enjoyed this episode, please follow and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.